Hello and welcome to the Investing Success Show. I'm your host, Brian Patton, along with my co-host, Adam Whitmire. We have been discussing
money.
That's
right.
It's a good topic.
It's a good topic.
And last couple of shows, we've been talking about the myths of millionaire myths. We had 7 millionaire myths that we covered. And we've also talked about how to basically our three-legged stool of money, which is paper assets,
real estate portfolio,
and business.
And a business, yeah.
And a couple shows back, Adam did a great job of showing us a pyramid that he came up with, basically creating a plan to go from where you are now, whether you're in your 20s or 30s or 40s or 50s or 90s, 60s, like our guest today. He's not really 90, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, right.
Where you can go from wherever you are and you can get to basically the top of the pyramid, right? Yeah, which is financially where you want to be, which whether that's a millionaire or if you just want to boot your boss, or if you want to just change your life a little bit. Everybody can do it in America. And if you don't believe it, we're going to show you how, because it's as simple as making some planning decisions. It's just some delayed gratification and knowing what to do with your money instead of going out and spending it on Starbucks coffee or a brand new car. Sometimes you got to make some tough decisions. I think back to when I first started my real estate career, and when I first started basically moving from my 9-to-5 job, which I chronicle in this book right here, Mailbox Moolah, which you can find on mailboxmoolah.com, is how I transitioned from that. And it's basically just, buying real estate and making some decisions that were sort of different than what my friends were deciding to do. My friends were all increasing the sizes of their homes. They'd go live in a house for 2 or 3 years and go sell it and make a few $1,000s so they could get a bigger house and a bigger house and a bigger house. Well, I didn't do that. I kept the house I had and I rented it out. And that's how I was able to start building wealth, and eventually was to be able to quit my day job in about, I guess, 7 years from the time that I really started investing in real estate. About 15 years from when I really started in the real world after college, from basically 22 or 23 years old. By the age of 37, I retired from that.
You're out.
Yeah.
And one thing we talked about in the past, we don't really believe in retirement. We don't really believe in stop working. We just believe work the hours that you want to work,
right? Doing
things that you're passionate about doing.
Right.
That's really what we're going to focus on. We're not going to stop moving.
Right.
We're going to keep,
exactly.
Yeah. So, and we'll go into that later. Once you've got, like we talked about, once you've developed the habits of building wealth and assets and you've got some money to invest, one of those categories is investing in a business.
Today we have Travis Howe with us with Transworld. Welcome, Travis.
Thank you, guys. Glad to be here.
Travis, and despite the fact I said you're 95, you're 95, I guess you're in your 60s. But
that's right.
You've had an amazing amount of experience, and we were talking about a little bit that before the show. Hit us a few highlights of sort of where you, from a business side, your background,
sure.
What you've done in the past.
Well, sure. I'm like a lot of you guys coming out of college. You're not exactly sure. Some of you do. If you're going to med school, you're going to law school, something like that, which my whole plan was to go to law school and practice law, which I did do eventually, but wound up in the business world and working for an international company. Always enjoyed selling, always enjoyed relationships with people. So started that career in selling and worked my way up in the corporate world to doing things I never thought I would do. I did finish law school, got a law degree, and I decided that was going to be a good background for anything I chose to do down the road. So I would recommend any of you guys that are thinking to do those things, go ahead and pursue those educational objectives that you're looking for to finish those, because later down the road you look back and you don't want any regrets on that basis. So moving ahead, just started out in the sales role and worked my way up into an executive role of business. And where I was actually running our U.S. operations, we were a multinational company based in 29 countries. I got a great cultural education working for a company based in Germany and learned a lot, got some additional education in Europe at one of the advanced management schools, so learned more than I ever thought I would. And so it was a great backdrop for business and really looking overall at how to run a business. And So, and the one thing I really always enjoy doing is surround myself with very, very smart people. Sometimes we think we know it all, but I really enjoyed surround myself with very smart people in all different areas of the business, and really loved learning from them as well as strategizing how to build a successful business as we went forward. And we went on from there. And then, just to kind of fast forward, after we sold the business, and I worked for some smaller companies and running them and helping them to get back to profitability, wound up buying my own business, in my early 60s. So that was kind of a jump. I'd always worked in a corporate structure, but wanted to know could I be an entrepreneur? And I know probably many of you are asking that, and many entrepreneurs say they got tired of working for the man. But just let me tell you this: when you're working your own business, you're still working for the man. It might be you, but you're still working. And there's nuances to that. And and looking for businesses, I would say, you really want to take your time. And if you're married, make sure your wife is on board with you. That's an important step, because in a marriage, this is a real partnership, and you really want to make sure that you guys really talk about those things and really discuss them to a level where you both are on the same page. Because it's very difficult, because you really want your wife supporting you when you move into that arena. But when you're looking at a business, find something that's you're really passionate about. Do you want to buy a resale? Do you want to buy a startup business, whether it's a franchise or whether it's an independent company? And then, come in with that with an exit strategy. I mean, even if you're in your 30s or 40s and you buy a business, make sure you've got an exit strategy coming in, because many people come in, don't have any objectives. And really, really study the incorporation methodologies. Know what an LLC is, know what a sub-S is, know what a C Corp is, because those will have major factors in the taxes that you pay. And also, when you get ready to sell the business, what kind of tax event it's going to create once you sell the business. And really think about those things up front. I recommend you sit down with a CPA and just put them all up on a column list. Put up LLC, put sub-S, put C Corp up, and really go down through those. And so you understand, one, all the tax benefits you can get running a company on a legitimate basis, and then understand what might happen down the road when you want to sell. So those are some of the things to look for up front then, and really know what a P&L on a balance sheet is. In being a business broker these days, I can tell you all the businesses I look at, 90% of them do not have good financials. And guess what? That hurts later on. That hurts your valuation.
By good financials, you mean not well
ability to record it, have them recorded and tracked.
Correct. Good point, Adam. Because make sure that all the revenue comes in your company is recorded. That means certainly your credit cards are, because you get a merchant statement from your processor on that end. But more importantly, is the cash and checks. Now,
explain why that would hurt you if you don't.
Because here's a good example. I go in and want to list a company that they want to sell themselves. And let's say they're doing $250,000 a year in credit card business. But they also tell me they're doing another $100,000 in other revenue, but they've never reported it.
And cash revenue and checks.
Yeah, cash revenue and checks, because you can take that, you can pocket it, you can do whatever you want. But if there's not a bank record of it, or if there's no receipts for it, then you're going to have a hard time proving the valuation to a buyer.
Company,
Right. And it's not so much, you got to prove it to the buyer. So the buyer is going to be looking at what can you show him that substantiates your sales of, whether it's $400,000, $500,000, or anything like that.
So you're hiding that extra $100,000, I guess, hiding it from the government.
Right. That's exactly right.
Then you're talking about on a 3 times that, you're talking about $300,000 in value that you can't prove.
That's right. And if you go back and look and see what kind of tax dollars you saved, you probably didn't save enough to compensate what your valuation would have been at a multiple of 2.5, 3 times, whatever the business model calls for at that stage. So, and the buyers are pretty sophisticated today. These guys come in and they're going to make sure that all your P&L and your balance sheet reconcile. They're going to make sure your tax returns reconcile, and also your bank statements. That's the real key, because your bank statements will save you so much in due diligence work when they all tie together. And because I experienced that when we sold our business. Our records were in such phenomenal shape that from the date that we actually signed the contract with the buyer, we closed in 30 days. And you guys know in real estate, closing something that quickly is a pretty big deal that you could do. So due to having good records, we proved to the buyer what we said was true, and plus then we could actually close much faster and not have all the due diligence work that's required to pull all this stuff together. That's where we come in as business brokers. We really help our customers set up and get through that process of going through due diligence, making sure you've got all the proper paperwork. And the number one is to have good financials, P&L, and balance sheet. Make sure you're recording everything. And if you've been in business over 3 years, have good 3 years of solid P&L and balance sheet work. Mm-hmm. Okay. 3 years is pretty much what every buyer is going to be looking for, unless you've only been in business. If you've been in business less than that, then the big question is, why are you selling so fast? And it could be a number of things. Could be health issues, could be family, could be having to move, could be a number of different things that are legitimate reasons.
So let's say I don't have maybe I'm just been in real estate. And I can relate to you're talking about making sure that you're not hiding income, because I've seen that in the real estate field. Mm-hmm. I had some quadruplexes I was trying to sell for a lady one time, and she'd done something very similar. She'd hidden $30,000 or $40,000 in income every year, which in real estate is more of a 10 cap, so it's $300,000 or $400,000 in value she could prove. Mm-hmm. And my buyer was willing to buy it, but the bank wouldn't finance it. Right. And so it really costs her a lot more money in the end. But let's say you're starting, you don't know a lot about business. How does one decide what kind of business to buy?
Well, it's according to, one, looking at what the market trends tell you. When I bought the business we bought, it was a brand new franchise selling pre-owned Apple products. And I thought
this one came from there.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, Brian was a good customer of mine, so I think he had me more repair stuff than he bought new. So, and because no one was selling pre-owned Apple product at a retail level, like where you had a bricks and mortar store, it was all online. Either one of the big online guys, it could be eBay, could be Craigslist, could be Gazelle, but you never know what you were getting when you bought something online. So I thought this was going to really be a really fast mover for us. So it was the only business I considered buying that we would start from scratch. And we got off to a really good mode. And my background and my corporate life certainly helped me from a business standpoint. Because if you come out of some business to where you've not really had a lot of exposure to the financial part of it, I'd recommend you go and take a course somewhere. Understand, the back office work here, because it's going to be critical about what kind of margins you drive and what kind of cash flow you're going to have, because most people come into a business with not enough working capital. And what I mean by working capital is enough money in the bank that when you start from day one, you've got enough to cover your shortfall, because you more than likely you're going to be, losing money for the first maybe 6 months to a year even. So have enough money you can cover, particularly inventory, payroll, and those kind of things. Because if not, you're going to wind up, you may have the business might be coming in, but you can't afford to keep up with buying inventory and your payroll and those kind of things. Fortunately, our business cash flowed itself within actually the first month or two. Wow. So whatever we came in with, that we had, we didn't really have to spend. So then the business kept funding itself. And so we made sure we kept enough working capital, because if you can't buy product to sell, then you really don't have a business. And if you can't pay your people, you're not going to have a business. So
Travis, you said one of the things that you mentioned that someone needs to understand how to read a P&L and a balance sheet. And one of the biggest mistakes that they make going in is not having enough capital. How do they go about figuring out how much capital that one would need to start a business or to buy a business?
Well, it's according if you're starting a business from scratch versus, and usually scratch is going to be from a franchise model. So you can get enough information from the current franchise owners. Now, in most franchisors with their FDDs, their financial disclosure statements, they will not give you profitability because they're not allowed to by law. But you can talk to other owners that own the business, and you can get information from them about how long did it take them to get up and running, what kind of capital did they start with, with, and just some of the pitfalls and some of the things that they did well and not well, and learn from them. So if you're ever looking at a franchise model, certainly if they've been around for a while, call every owner that you can get access to and talk to them and get the information from them and find out what kind of cash is required.
Good advice.
If it's a resale, then all you have to do is look at the business. In a resale, what I always look at first is who has the connection with the customer. If they have a sales force and they're going to stay with you, then you're in good shape. If the owner has done pretty much the selling, has all the relationships, and he's going to go away, then I would think twice about buying that business.
Yeah.
Because can you transition, unless you can get the owner to stay and you pay him on a performance basis. There's all kind of ways to structure a deal on that basis to get him to stay. So, but then looking what the business is, because the first thing we do is we take a business, we look at their P&L, and so whatever's going to come out, like the owner's salary, the owner's expenses, the owner's insurance, anything that's not going to repeat, and we recast that P&L, because it's going to look better. Now, you're going to have to replace some of that salary with someone else, or how you're going to do it. But then you can determine if the business is cash flowing pretty well and it's got good earnings right now, then you might not need a lot of working capital. It may have enough built into the business. But you can determine what you're going to need, and it's according to what kind of business it, how much inventory you have to keep in there. Is it a services business? Is it a product-oriented business? Whatever business it is, because the key things are going to be inventory and your payroll. Because you can't do business without inventory. You can't do business without payroll. Yeah, the other things, of course, you've got your basic things, utilities, and those things.
So how do you go about valuing that business if you're going to buy an existing business?
Well,
you mentioned 2 to 3 times income.
Yeah, and certain industries have different multiples. And also there's 12 different methodologies for probably valuing a business. And one of them is discounted cash flow. That one's a little bit more complex. Most companies don't need that. And what you're looking at is getting to what we call discretionary earnings, or like EBIT, earnings before interest and taxes. So we're looking at the cash flow of the business, because cash flow is the most critical thing, because things like depreciation come back into as revenue. Because if they bought a piece of equipment, they bought it up front, they're just depreciating over the years. And so that comes back in, because you're putting that on your P&L balance sheet each year, but that comes back in as on the earnings side. So you look at that. And then and I'd say generally a lot of businesses that we see today are going to be in the 2 to 2.5 multiple range. If you get into more technology-oriented businesses, they're going to probably be up there a little bit. And also sometimes it's in the eyes of the beholder. We sold another business for a 10 multiple that because of the accounts we had, and there was a big player in the marketplace that wanted these were telecoms. And back when the telecoms were more regionalized, like, is what I'm trying to think of here, that this company wanted them all, and we had a good many of them. So we wound up selling the company for a 10 multiple, which was a phenomenal price. Now, that doesn't always happen. So I'm saying generally you're going to see 2.5 is going to be your multiple range there, plus your FF&E, that's furniture, fixtures, and equipment.
And most people calculate that income off of EBIT, you said, as opposed to EBITDA or...
EBITDA is depreciation and amortization. Yeah. So a lot of companies don't have that aspect because they're not buying big equipment. Now, because we look at Main Street type of businesses, which would be anything from dry cleaners to hair salons to nail salons to restaurants and things like that. Now, some of them do have some equipment in there that might be in that category. But most of them like that. But then you get off into more manufacturing businesses and some of the service-oriented business, and then you've got a little bit different picture there. But there's nobody too small or too large that we can't handle on that basis. So
that's great. So what does the business broker do to assist in someone in either selling a business or assisting them in purchasing a business?
Right.
Because I'm assuming you do both.
Yes, we do. Well, the main thing we do is certainly, like in the real estate market, you really want to be the listing agent, on that basis. So, because then we've got a lot of other buyers. We've probably got over 100,000 potential buyers in our database. Plus, we push it out to a number of other websites out there. But as far as the listing goes, first thing that goes on, like if you're a business owner and you're thinking about selling your business, maybe you want to retire, Maybe you want to move off. And many business owners sometimes will move back into a corporate life. I see that a lot if they buy a franchise and it didn't turn out just exactly the way they thought. I've got a friend right now, we've got his business listed, and he's gone back into his corporate.
More hours than they thought they would.
That's exactly right. Yeah, and it's, believe you me now, just being an entrepreneur is not all fun and games. I see
that a lot on the real estate leasing side when we lease, commercial buildings, and you have people that have had a dream for years that, hey, I want to open, whatever, a ice cream store, and they go do that,
right.
and spend their retirement money on it, and they don't make the money they projected, or
right.
they're working a lot of hours.
Right.
And it's not quite what they thought it was. So you got to be ready for that aspect,
sure.
Right?
That's exactly right. Yeah, because, the first thing the owner is going to say, well, what do I do? Who do I turn to? Well, and that's where we come in because, one, how do you value the company? Now, there's a lot of emotional values that business owners put on their business. Mm-hmm. And I want to just tell you right now, that's not how it's going to work. It's what you think it's worth and what the market says it's worth is really what's going to come down to. Because at the end of the day, the buyer or the market's going to determine what the price is. But we'll come in and we'll basically do a comprehensive analysis of the business. Looking at all their financials, looking at their the market trends in there and their operation, all the things that are going on there, and we'll give them a whole analysis of what that looks like, and then we'll structure the sale on that basis. We'll basically lay everything out, and what we do is we do an initial business summary of the business. We'll put all the key financial figures in there, like what's the selling price, what's the revenue, what's the discretionary earnings, and those kind of things. And then maybe what's the FF&E value. The other thing too is inventory. There's three components really to the sale. There's FF&E, which is your furniture, fixtures, and equipment, and then there's inventory, and that inventory moves from the day that you actually write the contract to the day you close, because it's the inventory on the day you close, because that will change the numbers a little bit. And then it's goodwill. And goodwill is basically your earnings and your reputation, everything you've built up. So those are the three kind of components. And just let me caution you one thing: keep on your FF&E, you want to keep that at a depreciated level, because you have a tax event on those things right away as a seller. So your buyer, pretty savvy buyer, would say, well, why don't we, if I had to spend that money today, it cost me $100,000. You may have a depreciated end of 50. I said, stick to the 50, and because you have to move it to the goodwill side, you still have a tax advantage there. So just be real savvy about how to structure those components, because a savvy buyer will know what he's doing too, because he'll get the tax advantage. It'll just take him longer to get them, rather than getting the deal right up front there. Then we do everything on a high confidential level. That's a key, because many business owners don't want anybody to know that they're selling their business. They don't want their employees to know, because if an employee knows and he tells everybody else, they might all walk, or they may start putting some negative reviews out there on their own company. And so we do that very confidential, but we give a good business summary. It looks like that. We push that out to our website. We've got over 200 offices in the U.S. We're the largest business brokerage in the country. And we actually operate in 16 countries outside the U.S. as well. So then we've got over 500 brokers. So all that gets listed in our database called Sydney. So that gets exposed to them right away. And then we actually network all this out to over 100 websites, to Biz, Buy, Sell, all the ones that you know the most. So we control all the flow of information. So when people come back or interested in that business, it comes back to us. So we will vet the buyers for the seller, because you don't want everybody knocking on their door that's just kind of just interested in what it might be, that they're not real serious purchasers. So then we will go in and vet them, make sure that they financially can put a deal together like that, do a credit approval on them, and talk with them before we allow them to see see the seller. And then we'll be there with them. Of course, it's like a real estate deal,
Help them negotiate it. Yeah.
Well, you always want to be there, because they start talking with each other. You never know what goes on.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it's just, and particularly in the real estate side, it's even more prevalent probably than our side.
That's interesting, Travis. So is that something you get any kind of specialist training for or license for?
Yes. Well, in Georgia, you have to have a real estate license. Now it's kind of funny. Well, yeah, you do, and there's 17 states in the country that require that.
Georgia's
because one of them.
Some of the businesses own real estate.
They do, but here's the catch on that. Then, so if I find a business that's got that wants to sell their commercial property, I've got to call my friend Brian over here to sell the commercial side.
Because 634.
Which is good because now we've got a specialist.
He can value the real estate.
Right.
You value the business.
Right. And so that makes it even better because he's an expert in that area. And, I don't know, they just want us to, our listing agreement looks like a real estate agreement. So there's a lot of terminology that's similar, so I can understand some of that to a degree. But yeah, we're also trained by Transworld. We go through 2 weeks of training, and then there's certainly a lot of on-the-job training. So Transworld's been around for 40 years. They've got a great model and of what to do, and we've got certainly a big support behind us because we've got we've got an M&A group too. If there's a $50 million deal out there, we can do that as well.
And you have a franchise group too, right?
Right. Well, that is part of our franchise group because we have 3 things that we can do here. We can help someone find a business that's listed, like that we've listed somewhere. It could be, and these are usually independent companies, but they could be part of a franchise. Or we can show them a franchise. Generally speaking, if we showed them up to 8 to 9 businesses and they haven't found one yet, they may be a good candidate for a franchise because franchises have models built in them.
Yeah.
So it tells you exactly, if they've been around for a long time, the system's in place. And basically what they tell you, if you follow the model, you'll be successful. Now, most of the owners that complain about not getting there are the ones not following the model. They're not doing anything.
That's pretty traditional.
Right.
Yeah.
And then we've got a third phase we do if there's a business out there that, actually Brian and I talked about this recently, if there's a business out there that really has got a really good model just in their one business and wants to franchise it. Now, not expand it, but franchise it, meaning they want to be the franchisor and open up more of those stores through franchisees coming in. We have a whole development team that puts all of that together. Puts all the legal paperwork together, the FDDs, the disclosure statements, and assesses the business and does all of those things. And they're very, very good at it. And they do it for a flat fee, which is a really good thing if there's a business out there that really thinks they can franchise it and wants to see it grow, but they don't want to put the capital out there to start opening up more stores here and there. They'll just open up a franchise. So
do you have an example? Let's say maybe one of our listeners is thinking about buying a business and maybe they got $100,000, maybe $200,000 in a 401k or something. Are there businesses out there that somebody can buy with that kind of cash?
Yeah, there are. I mean, the thing too is what we do, we try to encourage all of our sellers to do seller financing for two reasons. Number one is it will attract more buyers because if you're looking at a business that maybe is $250,000 and the seller's willing to finance half of that, so you got to come up with $125,000, and you've looked at the business is generating X amount of earnings, and that works out well. It's much easier to come up with $125 than $250. So then you don't have to go to a bank. You don't have to go through all the other small business loans and those kind of things to do that with. And for the seller, he defers his capital gains tax. So rather than paying for capital gains on $250,000, he's going to pay it on $125,000 and then defer it over 3 to 5 years. And then, because he can make up to 7 to 8%, interest on that money too as well, and have that cash coming in on a monthly basis. We like to work the deal where the purchaser, where we can make it what we call pencil, meaning that whatever he's paying back to the owner monthly, that the earnings in the business still gives him a enough of a comfortable,
reasonable cash flow.
Exactly, that he can still live on.
Yeah.
But now he's in a position where the great thing is he doesn't have any big debt out there other than paying the seller back. Now,
and how long is usually an owner financing?
3 to 5 years. 3 to 5 years, yeah. I'd say some will go 5. It's according to how big the deal is, because you make it, if you take it out to 5, you want to take it out to 5. So let's say if the company's kicking off, I don't know, $4,000 a year in earnings, and you're going to, you've got at 3 years, it's going to cost you $3,000 to pay it back versus going out 5 years, maybe it's 2. So it makes it a lot more. It's going to make it look better for both parties on that basis. Now, yeah, the owner's going to have to wait a little bit longer. But when you go out, sometimes if the price is negotiated, by the time you count all the interest up, you may have closed the gap on what he wanted originally versus what he settled on, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
No, that's really interesting. So what kind of businesses do you see most commonly out there that people are buying or selling?
Well, a lot of them, like we call the Main Street guys, the mom and pops up and down the street. You look at every strip mall, there's a hair salon in there, or there's a day spa. There's there's all different types of specialty businesses too. There's manufacturing business that we see that are out there too. But we've got you name any business that we've had the experience of selling them. So.
Now, I'm assuming, just like real estate, buying a business is not a passive investment.
No, it's not. I mean, you mean as far as being?
How involved do you have to be?
Okay,
in some cases, the owner would have to either run the business.
Right.
In some cases, maybe they have to hire someone.
Right. Well, there's definitely businesses that are really built around absentee owners. And there's a lot of them. There's many of them that aren't, because most of them, like you take a Subway shop.
I want one of those guys.
Yeah.
I don't want to work.
I mean, well, here's a good example that Brian and I just talked about the other day. Let's say like a coin-operated laundry. You don't need anybody there because everything's done. And they may have certainly the laundry machines in there too, but a lot of them added all kind of gaming aspects in there. So the revenue that comes in these things is pretty substantial, a lot more than you would think. And the earnings on them are very, very good. So those things have great potential, and you might have one guy that would actually oversee, collect all the money, or do some of the maintenance work. Many of the guys that own some of the franchises like Subway, they do those absentee because not any one of them would kick off enough earnings to really pay for one person. You'd need probably 3 or 4 or 5 of those to do that with. So
I had an accountant tell me one time that they've seen a hair salon, it was a nail salon, pulling in almost $1 million a year.
Wow.
One hair salon.
Well, now some of them, because there's I know some of them that are
interesting location.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we've got one right now. She's close to that, and I mean, she is one of the best business owners I've ever seen. Just brilliant business person, plus very, very good at her craft and knows her stuff very well. And that's where you have great people that don't turn over that much. And you've got great customer base, and you've got great word of mouth. Because let's face it, your best marketing methodology out there is word of mouth. Once you have your business up and running, nothing's better than that. And then the next thing's probably online searches through Google AdWords and those kind of things. But
how do you deal with a property that's just leasing space, and maybe you only got a 3 or 5 year? If you buy that business, are you just hoping that you are able to renew the lease when it comes up?
Well, yeah, most of
they try to extend that lease before you buy it.
You probably wouldn't do that because if it's got 2 years, 3 years left on the lease, and let's say if the lease is in a pretty good per square foot price level, most of the leases have assignability aspects in them. There may be a small fee in transferring that. Now you just need to make sure that you're not still tied. If you're the current owner, and you're selling the business, make sure that once that's assignable, that it goes, all the rights go.
The lease.
They can't come back on you because certain things that they can do that with. But I think if the lease is in pretty good shape now, and in this area, the leases are pretty good, particularly in the Cumming area, unless you get into some of the front stores on a Marketplace Boulevard, something like that. So probably most of them, because you can bank on that. And usually they'll have a 3% increase on most of those leases. So the main thing to do is to talk to the landlord or the property manager, whoever's handling that lease. I like it when the landlords are here locally, but most of them are Midwest or somewhere like that, or off to somewhere not here. And I was fortunate to have a landlord. My business was right here and did a lot of really good things for me. I won't tell the arborist in Cumming what they did, so I cut down trees. So.
No, that's great.
But
you just told them.
Yeah,
that's great.
Too late now.
Yeah.
But
so no, that's really interesting. And so I guess you get to see a number of different types of businesses. And you mentioned that if someone wants to be an absentee owner, those businesses, typically you have to own a few of them to really make a good living.
Right. Now, a coin-operated laundry, one of those the one that we've seen recently kicks off quite a bit of revenue and quite a bit of earnings and well up into the six figures. So now that might take a while to build up. And but yeah, there are things like that don't require owners. But there's other businesses like the one I had that there's some guys that came in and bought them and wanted to be absentee owners. If you do that, you've got to have a very, very good general manager that you trust that can come in and run the business, that will handle, the money. Everything else that comes in the door there will, oversee the all the employees and that type of thing. So it's they're not going to work it like you do, though. That's the thing you got to look at.
Watches your money like you do.
That's right. That's right.
The
We were very fortunate, man. I'll tell you, I didn't have a nickel out of place in over 3 years. So, and I think
you had a little theft.
Well, we did get broken into twice. Yeah, yeah. That just were 42 laptops walked out the door in that first one.
No.
Then I built that thing like Fort Knox, man. So nobody was getting in after that. So I spent more money on security than I did anything else. So.
No, that's great. So.
Yeah.
Are there any tips or advice that you would offer someone if they're thinking about buying a business or investing in a business?
Well, one thing I would do is look at how you're going to finance this. The real key thing here, because I'm not a big fan of you fund it with your 401k, because there are gray areas to the IRS tax code that a 401k can buy a business, because the way the 401k stays intact, it owns the business. Now, the business has to be a C corp. That has other ramifications at the end of the day, because when you sell the business, it has two tax events: the corporate tax and the shareholder tax. So, and I've seen guys that try to raise the price up to offset that tax, and it doesn't work. So I would be really careful. I said, if you don't have a block of money sitting somewhere, first thing to look at is the equity in your home and doing a HELOC, because now everything's backed up by your home, and plus it's the lowest interest rate you're going to get out there right now. And I would look at any equity in your home, particularly if you're really big.
I hope Dave Ramsey's not listening.
No,
That's
yeah,
right.
Yeah. Well, we're talking a different level than that, but yeah, David said don't borrow anything, so you'd be just sitting out there. I mean, the next thing is look at SBA loans, that type of thing. But you're just going to have your finances in good shape.
Can someone actually get an SBA loan nowadays?
Yeah,
is that reasonable to get?
You can. I mean, what we did is kind of funny. We did, they called it an SBA express loan. There's nothing express about it, I can tell you that, because you have to initially pass all their financial requirements, meaning they'll look at all your assets, look at any kind of income you got coming in, and making sure you pass that first stage. Then you go through the underwriting stage, which is basically writing a pro forma. And if you've never written a pro forma for a business, find somebody that's done that before, so you can actually lay out what you're expecting the revenue to be. Now, if it's a resale, you've got that stuff sitting there. But look at what you think you're going to be doing in year one in your business, and look what your expenses are and those kind of things, and build a pro forma. And then the final stage is just going through the final documentation through SBA. But we did it. We actually borrowed $150,000 and just as backup. We just didn't know what we would need working capital flow, but we never spent a nickel. And I paid it back in a year and never spent any of the money. So,
how long did it take you to borrow the SBA money?
That took probably about 2 to 3 months. And they called it the express loan.
That was the express?
Yeah.
Like 2 to 3 months?
There was nothing express about it. Now, usually you're doing that through a local bank, because 75% of their money is guaranteed by the government. So
banks love it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so it's going to be, next to I don't think your own bank's going to be a viable resource for that because of the interest rates. And usually was prime at 5.25 now these days, somewhere in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's prime plus 2, something like that for SBA loan, but and then you want to be really careful if the franchisor offers any leasing arrangements. Do not do that. No matter what you do, do not. If it's leasing for the FF&E, the rates are going to be high, and you're going to be facing a pretty big payment right off the bat. So just reassess if you can't come up with some of the money yourself, or you can do a couple of those things there to make sure that you're not going to be filing bankruptcy after going out and starting a new business and thinking this is going to be great, and then you wind up filing bankruptcy over it, which I've seen quite a bit, with guys that just get overextended. And then when you sell the business, if you actually get into all these lease arrangements, it'd be tougher to sell the business then after that, because nobody's going to want to assume that kind of lease. And the lease would be predominantly on like the FF&E. Like in our business, it was $80,000 to bring all the furniture, fixtures, equipment, and all the tools in our store. And it could be more or less in other types of businesses. And what they offered was to lease that, at a high rate, and you wound up paying. It was probably you'd be paying well over $100,000 for that by the time you got done with it, and it might be a $2,000 a month payment. So you think about
that takes a lot of cash flow out.
Well, take your rent's going to be over $2,000. You got $2,000 there, and you ain't even started paying payroll yet. Mm-hmm. And so just to really just be smart. Sit down with your CPA, man, and go through this stuff with a fine-tooth comb and make sure you understand it. Make sure you know how to read your back office. Watch your margins. Margins are key to your business, what you're selling it for. That starts to create the profit right there on the front end. And then you got to watch your expenses, but be running really good margin business so that you got a good chance to.
What is a
profitable.
Good margin nowadays?
Well, it's according to what the business is. Well, margin can offset lack of revenue sometime too. So let's say if you're running like a 60% margin, your numbers don't have to be quite as high as they would be if somebody's running 35%. It's according to what the business is and what the market dictates, frankly. And, if you've got a lot of services to your business, you can get higher margins because that's predominantly your labor rates. Maybe a few parts here and there. So generally you can go higher than that. And it's according to how you buy them. In our business of buying computers, if I bought from Brian walking in with his old computer, I could make a bigger margin on his computer than I could buy from a wholesaler. Now, Brian would probably say, come back, why don't you split that with me, Trav?
That's right. That's right. He would.
Maybe you may owe me some money now.
Travis, if I'm looking like as an investor and I'm looking for a business where I'm kind of be an absentee owner investing in a business, is there a general, return on investment that I'm going to be looking for? Because I know that the business purchases on a multiple, and do you have buyers that come to you saying, hey, you're trying to look for a particular return on their investment?
Well, you might be on the higher end buyer, I'm invested in a couple other companies now, and we're looking more like what's the valuation, on the share. And, if you're just a pure investor, let's say that it's according to whether you're going to buy the business versus are you putting money, are you investing into a business that's either getting started. And I've got a couple of those right now working with some people on. And then, valuing that on a per share basis, and then what's the exit strategy down the road? Is it dividends? Is it, are they looking to sell the business in 5 years?
I can imagine with Shark Tank being so popular that, that gets the wheels turning, and there's a lot of people interested in buying or investing in companies.
Well, they are, because I think, with the market, of course, the market's been on a good 8-week trend now, 9-week trend here, which is great. But, next month it might be, if the talks with China don't go well, then who knows where it'll be. So, and it's so up and down, but it's like land and property and businesses sometimes are really good, solid investments because they always come back. Even if land or homes go down, they come back. I think with businesses, certainly they can go south on you too. But you've got to look and see where the business is going, what are the opportunities out there, what kind of technology they bring into the business, and those kind of things. So a lot of times I look at the people. I look at the people who are running the show, because that's the first thing. If you've got good products and you got not so great people doing the job, then not going to work so well. And then the next step is processes. What kind of processes they got in place? So,
Travis, it's been good having you on the show today. Maybe we could have you back and talk some more later. Maybe
sure.
Give us some more examples of some businesses
some
out
deals
there.
That you've done recently.
Yeah, because that's it's fascinating stuff to me, especially when you start talking about multiples. It looks more lucrative sometimes than real estate. But
let me ask you one quick question.
Sure.
We actually have a tech company, and understand.
He's wanting free advice. Sounds like
This is the best time for it, right?
No problem.
So we have
that'll be $1,500.
Get your credit card out. So we have a real estate company. Real estate companies typically trade at lower multiples.
Mm-hmm.
So we also have a tech company that will develop software for the real estate company. And so what we've kind of done is we've absorbed the real estate company into the tech company.
Mm-hmm.
Because the revenue that we can sell the tech company at, the multiple is a lot higher,
right?
Theoretically. So is that kind of something that's a realistic strategy that might actually work when all is said and done?
Right. Are you selling the software technology outside? You said
outside the business.
You moved it in with
it's
the
a SaaS model, like a subscription-based model as well.
Right. Well, if you've got that,
so we have a services side.
Right.
And then we have just a subscription side.
Certainly, those kind of areas in this coordinate, what the growth of that particular market is and how the software is going. That probably tends to have a higher multiple on the technology side than it does in some of the businesses that are just doing, like we talked about earlier, whether it's a dry cleaner, those kind of things. So a restaurant. But yeah, typically they have much higher multiple return on that basis because the margins are normally better or the earnings are better. So, and it's according to what kind of marketplace you've got out there.
So we're really looking for margins. The higher the margin, the better.
Yeah. Now, and margins are harder to kind of nail down with software because you've got all your development side here. Let's say it cost you $2 million to develop that software. Now you've got to what we call rolling out a cost within each piece of software that you sell out there. Because sometimes that can hurt you the way you price it because you've already spent the money. So if you're trying to recapture that in every sale, sometimes that can put it. I've been in those kind of situations before where it can put the price too high to really sell it because you still got to meet the market demands. But how quickly can you return that development back? And then what's the longevity and where can you go with the sales on that basis? So those would tend to more look like not maybe exactly what's going on today, but what's going to happen down the road. We've got another technology we're looking at that I can't really talk about at this stage, but the growth potential looks unbelievable to where we think we could the business can sell at a huge multiple on this basis. So finding the right buyer, but it's still all about finding the right buyer. Because you find the big guys in the industry who don't want to do what you've already done in development-wise. And that's where the big return comes back because they've already done the hard work. Now, the bigger company has the distribution, they have the marketing, they have everything already in place, so they just plug it right in. A good example, we bought back in my printing days, we were one of the biggest suppliers to all the tag and label products to all the retail industry. TJ Maxx and Marshall was one of our largest customers. And we had distributors all over the country. We had about probably 50 of them or more that sold mom and pop stuff. But what they really wanted was getting the horticulture tag and label business. And that's our unique business because you've got plastic tags that are 32 mils thick, and they've got to handle all the ultraviolet rays from the sun and all those things. Now, I could have gone and bought the equipment to do that with, but I said, geez, it's going to cost me $1 million just in equipment. And then we got to do all this other development. So we started looking for companies, and we found this company down in Florida, been in business 35 years. The guy had developed the presses that would die cut that stock, and they had a great following. We bought the company, integrated them in. We already had all the enterprise solutions already in our business. We tripled their revenue in 18 months. Just through because we had the distributors, we had the infrastructure.
You just wanted
they
to
had the product. Oh yeah, it was one of those beautiful things you see. It works right.
I don't remember a phone call about investing in that one.
That's right.
That was
more money.
That was a non-investable scenario, but
Ron's good at counting his dollars.
Yeah, Travis, tell us how to reach. How can the folks reach you? Cell phone, internet, stuff like that.
Well, you can reach me at, it's kind of easy. It's Howe, THOWE at Tworld, WORLD.com.
Easy for you to
yeah, that's all right. And that's my email address, and you can reach me on my cell phone at 973-452-4923. Again, that's 973-452-4923. And yeah, that is a New Jersey number. I've just had it for many years since
we won't hold that against you.
I had international colleagues all over the place that said you can always know where to find me. So use that number.
Travis, thanks for joining us. This has been your host, Brian Patton, along with co-host Adam Whitmire. Don't forget to rate and subscribe to the show. And if you want to check out our website, it's brianpattoncommercial.com and also bpcbusiness.com. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.